It was supposed to be the two of us since the beginning. You promised. Our parents promised. Mommy and Daddy told me that's the way things are supposed to be.
Grace, is that really what you want?
What? Of course! We were born to be together. That's our destiny. With the release of FNF Softbeat 2, there has been an overhaul with not just the visuals, music, and audio, but also with the writing, taking it to a whole different direction. With the new dialogue tweaks, the characters are given more depth and context to their backstories, relationships, and dynamics towards one another. However, I've seen people heavily dislike this one particular character even after giving more background and reason to her actions. You've seen the title. I'm talking about Grace Dearest, the childhood friend of Benjamin Fairest. Despite the negativity towards her character in V1, I personally think that she's become a really well-written character in the V2 update. Salutation here! I know how this sounds a bit biased for me to cover a video literally talking about how Grace is a good character, but let me explain! Despite my involvement with the mod itself, literally being the voice of Grace, I'm going to remain as objective and as neutral as possible so that this video remains informative and less opinionated. Regardless, Grace is my favorite character, so take this video with a grain of salt. With that said, I'd like to start off with what we know about Grace. As an overview, what we can tell from both versions of the mod is that Grace Dearest is the childhood friend of Soft Boyfriend, known as Benjamin Fairest in this alternate universe. She is the daughter of Mommy and Daddy Dearest and is the girlfriend stand-in for the Soft mod. Now, unlike most mods, Grace is not with this mod's boyfriend. She is instead the childhood friend and assigned bride in an arranged marriage made by the Dearests and Fairests. With this information, it starts to indicate that the arrangement was made to pass on the legacies of either one or both of the couples involved. Doesn't that seem sad? But if that's what we know about Grace, why do people hate her so much? Going back to V1 of the Soft mod, Grace's introduction in Chapter 3 in relation to Benjamin's life was a bit rough to say the least. Even I think that the writing placed her in a bad light.
Alright, I really should be going now. BF, tell me something. Why are you so interested in this criminal? Criminal? Can we please not do this right now? It was supposed to be the two of us since the beginning! You promised. Our parents promised. Why are you doing this to us? To me! TF, you don't understand. You remember what he did back in high school, right? He's the whole reason we had to get privately tutored. You are literally picking a school shooter over me! You know dang well that's not what happened that day. Without him, you and I could have done... No! Mommy and Daddy told me so. They would never lie to me. Listen. No, you listen, you liar. You're coming home with me and we are going to live out our happily ever after. Together. This wasn't how it was meant to go. I'm sorry. That life they made for us doesn't exist. It's not fair. Why him? I can't help who I love, GF. Neither can I. How could you do this to me? Oh man. Gee, don't be like that. We're still best friends. We can still hug things out, right?
Now, because of said writing, it gives a poor portrayal of Grace as a whole. It paints her as an entitled person that's childish and selfish and cries over her crush, not reciprocating the same feelings. I'm not going to argue with that because looking back, she did come off entitled with a savior complex. She's basically telling Benjamin, why are you with this guy when you're supposed to be with me? And that is not a good look on you, especially when people are going to misinterpret your words while you're having a mental breakdown. However, playing devil's advocate, it can be interpreted as why are you with this horrible criminal when you could have been with me, someone you trust. But as I stated, it didn't come off that way to a lot of people, labeling her as a spoiled brat.
I'm gonna say this once and quickly. How much of an entitled, selfish brat can GF be to think that everyone keeps their promises like it's the gospel? And then how could she believe her parents over BF, who she claims she's supposed to live happily ever after with? If she wants that happily ever after with, then she should be able to trust BF. But if she can't do that over her own parents, then what is the point of believing in a happily ever after? Like, it's so frustrating the way she's acting right now. And she's acting just like BF's parents, trying to drag him to where he doesn't want to be. Like, she shouldn't be so one-sided about this. GF's just being entitled. She's being an entitled brat who really doesn't want to understand BF, even though she claims she wants to live her happily ever after with him.
And for some reason, she's homophobic. Why was she homophobic? Where did that come from? The issue with Grace in version 1 was due to the limited writing experience that the devs had at the time, causing that poor portrayal of her character. Well, if she's better now, what changed? What we need to take into account is that there had been criticism made towards the writing of the soft mod in general. This was reflected through the rewrite in version 2, which in turn gave a lot of these characters more clarity in their intentions and motivations. Even tweaking the dialogue for Benjamin, instead of running away, he'd face problems instead, unlike what was shown in the initial release. As much as what my praises are for Benjamin, I'd rather save them for a different video. Going back on topic, this rewrite was not just a good thing for Ben, but it was also a plus for Grace as well.
Alright, I really should be going now.
Benny, tell me something. Why are you so interested in this criminal?
Criminal?
Can we please not do this right now?
It was supposed to be the two of us since the beginning. You promised. Our parents promised. Mommy and Daddy told me that's the way things are supposed to be.
Grace, is that really what you want?
What? Of course. We were born to be together. That's our destiny.
Grace, that's not...
Why? Why are you running away from that? From me?
I'm not. Don't you see how messed up this is? You were born to live your own life, not just for an arranged marriage.
No, you're wrong. Mommy and Daddy wouldn't lie to me.
Grace, listen.
No, you listen. We're supposed to get married. That's what's best for the both of us. So, please, just come home. First and foremost, what we can get from this exchange is that we learn a lot about their home lives, as well as the arranged marriage that was initially missing from the dialogue of version 1, which changes the tone entirely. Version 1 Grace came off as entitled just for the sake of being entitled. Comparing it to version 2 Grace, she had more of a motive to feel broken with Ben leaving and not just another antagonist to Ben's situation. In version 2, Grace isn't stopping Ben from being with Pico or making him stay because she's selfish, but because it's what their parents said is best for them. Making her emphasize this in her dialogue portrays her as less of an annoying whiner and more of someone just trying to follow what's been told to her. This is especially highlighted with the line, "Mommy and Daddy told me that's the way things are supposed to be," showing that she was told she would be with Benjamin, not that she insisted that they would be together. Now that we can see she's not acting out of her own interest in mind, she's become more of a sympathetic character as we start to realize she's unaware of her circumstances. This is the reality she's been told and taught all her life. Although meaning well for the both of them, it's forceful. Knowing this, Ben tries to pull Grace out of that reality. He asks her, "Is that what you really want?" Making her question said reality, but not wanting to face that horrible reality. Grace continues to deny the truth, but Ben doesn't give up on her, because he knows that she's a victim as well as he is. He tells her, "You were born to live your own life, not just for an arranged marriage." Grace answers back with hesitation. She suddenly isn't confident with her answer. She's only ever known that it's what her parents want for her. All she's known is that she was promised this very thing, nothing else. She doesn't even know if that's what she wants. Does she want this marriage to happen? Now, this shows a contrast with her initial introduction, where before she was being greedy. Now she doesn't really know what she really wants. What do we know now about Grace? Other than being in an arranged marriage with her childhood friend Benjamin, she was promised a future that was flawed and tailored for her without her full acknowledgement or understanding. This made her base her entire life off of that promise, which soon became her reality, and that was not discouraged from anyone around her, not even her own parents. And not just that, she's a victim of circumstance. She's in a situation similar to Ben, but minus her parents being horrible and stuff. In fact, they were the complete opposite. They sheltered her, which actually brings me to my next point. Although it's not specifically said in the mod, according to the wiki and the softmod Twitter account, Grace's parents overly sheltered her, and even if it may have come off as manipulation, it was never the intent of her parents. The reason why they even made the arrangement with the Dearests in the first place was to give Grace the best shot at life. That might be a bit of a shock to you since I said manipulation and sheltered in the same sentence as they wanted the best for their daughter. Hi, editing Jam here. I think I worded my sentence pretty poorly. So, just to clarify, not all parents who are sheltering their children are not manipulative and are using this as like manipulation. I'm just saying, it's just Grace's parents are not the example. They're probably not using it intentionally. They just care a lot about Grace and don't want her to like, be hurt by the world. Just the way they dealt with it is not right. It wasn't right. And that's a fault on their part. Alright, that's all I wanted to say. But I'll try my best to explain and lay out the scene for you. Imagine being a wealthy, soon-to-be parents of a daughter. Meet this couple who are famous with lots of fortune and are expecting a baby boy. Offer to give their son to your daughter to inherit lots of wealth and fame, setting both of them up for a secure life. So you two, wanting the best life for your child, agree to the offer and start to spend the rest of 19 years raising your daughter and telling the life that you have planned out for her. That sounds great in theory, but in execution, doesn't translate well to the real world. And that's exactly what happened with Grace. To me, if the Dearests never met the Fairest or have agreed to that arrangement, Grace probably wouldn't have been so sheltered or even be in the circumstance in the first place. However, we can't change what has already happened. It's fate that the arrangement would be made, and realize how it was all planned with greed and malintention in mind. With this revelation, it makes these two grow as their own people. We can see this breakthrough happen with Grace in the next time we see her in Chapter 6 and in Lag Train. The aftermath of Chapter 3 is played out in the free play song Lag Train, depicting the first time Grace and Sven meet. Even though there's nothing much to go off of in the song itself, we can interpret that the two feel some kind of connection, possibly sharing similar emotions within their first encounter. This is the perfect setup since later on in the story, the two start dating after that initial encounter. Not only does this indicate to us that Grace has moved on from Benjamin, but also tells us that she's also broken off of that reality that ruined her perception of the world. Side note, I won't be tackling Sven's character in this video since the softmod account did say they were working him, so I'll probably cover his character in a later time. Anyway, moving on to Chapter 6, we see that Grace changes her appearance drastically. cutting her hair shorter, dressing more confidently, which she's never done this before, as Benjamin points out. Although it's not stated in the mod itself, Grace has had insecurities with her body, but now, because of her newfound confidence since our last encounter, she started to grow out of those insecurities. She's found a better purpose in life than a false truth told to her, and instead finds her own truth and her own life. Wait, what time is it? Oh goodness, I'm gonna be late. My parents think I'm reading at the library.
Huh? They don't know you're on a date?
They'd kill me if they knew I was with Sven, let alone how they'd feel if they knew I was with you two as well.
You've never lied to your parents before.
Yeah, well, I gotta live my own life sometime, you know?
You're absolutely right.
Those words are what Ben had told Grace in their initial encounter, which Grace echoes back to him in this chapter, showing her growth and maturity from who she was when we had first met her and when Ben had seen her last. At this point, Grace has become a new person. She's no longer the insensitive yet clueless victim, but is now a person who is choosing to live her own life, discovering and understanding the world at her own pace, not through someone else's lens. Basically, Grace is not reliant on anyone else's view on her life. She realizes that it's more important to play out the life she wants than how anyone else would want. Grace Dearest's story is about self-realization, growth, and maturity, breaking out of the horrible life that warped her perception on reality to search for her own life in return. She's not a spoiled and entitled brat, but a victim of circumstance, which made her actions and words appear inconsiderate to the people around her. Once her views were tested by her own friend, she slowly got better and became a new person. Her old self is no longer her, but a glimpse of the past that once defined her for a period of time, yet doesn't describe how and who she is now. Writing the script made me realize how much I'm like Grace without even realizing it. Even before I was casted, I'll be honest, I'm not happy of who I was in the past, and I absolutely despise my old self. But just like Grace, I broke out of my old reality and found my life in a new and better one. A life where I can do better than what I could have done. And because Grace's story speaks to me, who says that it can't speak to others going through the same thing? Sure, soft mod may not be the best mod in storytelling, especially since it requires a lot of media literacy to understand the deeper subject matter, but it's enough to portray heavy topics in a mature and careful manner. This is one of many. Thank you so much for watching my analysis on Grace. I'd love to do more of these kinds of analysis commentary videos like this in the future. I find them very interesting, especially with the character of discussion. Honestly, the inspiration for this video was because it ticked me off when people would mischaracterize her and portray her oh so awfully. Even now, I couldn't help but clear up the air in this video. I hope you've been able to endure my aimless ramblings. Speaking of which, I've recently got into a certain Roblox game that may or may not been appearing on my feed constantly for the past 4 months while I was on hiatus. I plan on redesigning some characters from that game, so look forward to that. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, consider checking out my other videos or becoming a member on my Ko-Fi. $2 a month grants you exclusive and behind-the-scenes content along with your name at the end of each video. $5 a month grants you all your previous perks along with your name read out loud at the end of each video and your OC drawn at the end of my videos as well. Just like this! Thank you so much to FlowKiller1 and the Doge King. If you don't want to consider a membership but would still like to support me financially, consider subscribing, or you can still donate on my Ko-Fi. Anything helps and it would still be appreciated. Anyway, I hope to see you again soon. Sleep well, eat good, drink water, and don't die. Arrivederci a tutti, alla prossima! Why do I still keep this Italian outro?